All right, this is Chapter 2 review. It's going to be a review. We've done quite a bit of this, and so we'll just kind of skip through this and try and keep this video down and moving. So, basic concepts of government. Where did we get the information? We talked a lot about that. Look at the page that talks about the Magna Carta English Bill of Rights. But remember the philosophers, and I know we did that a week or so ago, but keep those philosophers in mind: Hobbes, Locke, Rousseau, and Montesquieu. This page in your book, you got to be familiar with that, and at least know that not all of the rights that we kind of think of as American, like freedom of religion and speech and trial by jury and stuff, we didn't invent that stuff. So we brought that with us as part of our English heritage. So. All right, 13 colonies. You got to be familiar with each type and that they had constitutions and charters. The British policies. This will be on the quiz as the cause and effect. So make sure that you know, and anything from the Sugar Act and the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act led to the Stamp Act Congress, and so forth. The Boston Massacre, the Boston Tea Party, all of those events. And there's a couple good pages in the textbook and a section that talks about all of those things that led up to the Revolution. And then the Revolution, you get the Revolution, and we win the Revolution, and then you get the Articles of Confederation. So we're going to skip through this. If you need to stop it for any reason, if you want to read it, use that handy pause button to do so. All right, so the Declaration of Independence had some important ideas that you ought to be familiar with. The idea of all men are created equal, that they endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And of course, Jefferson just swapped the pursuit of happiness for property that Locke espoused. So basically kind of the same thing. And again, we talked quite a bit about that in class. So most of the states had constitutions, and so there was quite a constitutional tradition. Now, even if you go back to the 1620s when the Pilgrims landed in Plymouth, one of the first things they did was write a constitution, also known as the Mayflower Compact. All right, so some of the items that you would find in the state constitutions, you would probably expect to find in a national constitution. So popular sovereignty, that people have the power; limited government, that there are limits to what government can do; the guarantee of rights; and then, of course, the Montesquieu model, that you have separation of powers, you have three branches, and they have checks and balances on one another. Again, if I'm going too fast, then go ahead and feel free to stop and pause it. And you can also use your textbook to get any additional information. All right, the Articles of Confederation were a weak alliance of independent states. I'm not going to be so hard on it to say it was a complete failure, because one thing it did is it won the war for us. So, it didn't win the war for us, but at least it got us through the war, right? And we were able to get Great Britain to sign the treaty in 1783, and then it got us through that first 4 years. And then, of course, there was a recognition that there was a problem with it. And so this is a really good table to pay attention to of some of the problems with the Articles of Confederation. What it came down to, and I'm not going to go over these one by one, but what it came down to is the Articles of Confederation were too weak to force the states to comply with the laws that they passed, or even to get along. And so we had to have something else other than the Articles of Confederation, a stronger government. And most of the Founding Fathers recognized that. So they met a couple times, and then finally the Virginia General Assembly requested that the 13 colonies meet in Philadelphia in 1787 and to look at what they can do to improve the Constitution or the Articles of Confederation. So not everyone was excited about it. You can read here, Patrick Henry, Sam Adams, and even some of the less well-known leaders in the states were not all that excited about it. The states had everything to lose at this convention. They knew there was going to be a stronger central government proposed, and most people that were for states' power and to keep the states in power were not exactly excited about the prospect of having these men, many of who were very popular and people would listen to, get together in Philadelphia and come up with an alternate form of government. So again, not everybody but was excited about it. But those that did attended to revise the articles if they needed to. So nobody really thought that they were just going to rip them up. They thought that they would get in there and revise them and make some changes. So the two main plans that were presented were the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. The new Virginia plan was in favor of the large states, Virginia being the largest state, 800,000 people, and then New Jersey was a small state, had a much smaller population than Virginia. They wanted to retain a lot of the power for the states. And so here's some of the differences. And we'll go over some of the other differences in class. But under the New Jersey plan, there really wasn't an executive to enforce the laws. Basically, it was very similar to the Articles of Confederation. But it was important, the New Jersey plan is important because it was used to debate the Virginia plan. And it was kind of held up as an alternative to the Virginia plan. So the compromises of the Constitution, and one thing we need to realize really quick is that the Constitution is a document of compromises. So the Connecticut Compromise, or also known as the Great Compromise, where they decided, as far as representation goes, that there would be a bicameral legislature. The upper house would be equal, so all the states would have equal representation, which made the small states happy. And then in the lower house, it would be proportional, which made the large states happy. Now, were both of them completely satisfied? Probably not. But again, it's a compromise, and so nobody gets everything they want. Everybody gets a little bit of what they want. So the Three-Fifths Compromise had to do with representation. It did not have to do with citizenship. It had to do with representation and taxes. The Commerce and Slave Trade Acts, you could not tax exported goods, which that improves trade. So you can't make money because one state exports more than another. And then the slave trade would end in 20 years. That was, by most people, they thought that would end slavery. They thought it would. Slavery was expensive, and it really wasn't paying off until, of course, the cotton gin was invented, and then it really took off, and cotton and slavery became big business. So, again, we've been over a lot of this, the influences on the Constitution and the reactions to it. Some people just didn't like it. George Mason, although he had a big impact on writing it and advocated for a Bill of Rights, he didn't really like it. Ben Franklin said it's not perfect, but it's probably about as good as we can do. So you have the Federalists and Anti-Federalists. The Federalists were those in favor, and the Anti-Federalists were opposed. And they both wrote articles that were submitted to the New York newspapers to convince New Yorkers to vote one way or another. And the Federalist Papers were important because all these articles, and they were written by Alexander Hamilton, John Jay, and James Madison, and they really gave us an insight into what the Founding Fathers intended and how the government would work. So they were important. Although they're not official documents, they do give us that insight. So the Constitution's ratified, and we finally get a government in 1789. And The inauguration takes place on April 30th when President of the United States, George Washington, was inaugurated. So that gives us the end of the chapter. I know that was really quick. Got it in under 11 minutes, but make sure you review that. Make sure that you know some of the events, the cause and effect. You know the foundations. You ought to know the Declaration of Independence, the main ideas there. And all right, okay. Good luck on the quiz.